Hello there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm Ryan in Singapore. Welcome to the Mindfulness Daily Practice. Hello, Jean. Hello, Caesar. Hi, Dirk. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Bernie. Hello, Joshua. Hi, Ray. Hi, Suzanne. Hi, Holly. Was Holly Grimes again? Yeah. Hi, Holly. Great to see you. Hello, Sybil. Let's see. Hi, Lorette. Hello, Andrew in Milford, Pennsylvania. Hello, Shonda in San Diego. Welcome, everybody. This week, we're talking about the neuroscience behind mindfulness. So, mindfulness has some measurable effect on the brain, and the brain changes as we meditate more. So, today's topic is kind of how does that work? Hey, I thought that I was stuck the way that I am. I thought that everything that I do, after some point, I've heard that people can't change. Isn't that true? I mean, after I get to a certain age, hasn't my brain just kind of solidified and there's no more that can be done? Well, there's good news in that you can change. And not only can you change, but your brain continues changing beyond the age of 25. So 25 was kind of the number that people used to think that the brain doesn't change any longer, because the brain stops growing at age 25. So the maturing of the brain pretty much happens until approximately that age. And then after 25, your prefrontal cortex, the executive center of the brain, is almost fully grown at that point. So thinking that, well, whatever I've done from 0 to 25, this stuff sets in stone, and that's not really the case. So this stuff in here continues changing over time, and as I mentioned yesterday, the main method of observation of the brain is fMRI, functional magnetic resonance imaging. By using this machine, you can see when the subject is given a task to do, can start to see how the brain is changing over time, and what's going on. So what areas are activated, and as those areas are activated, we can see the size of these areas as well. I think before we go into it as well, as a note of scientific humility, I think that there's still work that needs to be done. Most of the studies that have been done are meta-analyses, so combining a lot of different scientific studies together to show that the trend is in the same direction. However, I think there's a lot of bias in mindfulness research, that most of the time people who are researching mindfulness are doing so because they think that mindfulness has some effect. And so I think that these people are going to have, that there's a chance that this in and of itself will bias their research a bit, because they want to see mindfulness having some effect. So I can understand that, of course. So looking forward to the future as more information about mindfulness becomes available, as more of these structured studies are done. And by the way, MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction, tends to be the test case. So it's usually like this group of people who've never meditated before. We test them before. They take MBSR, we test them after, we put them in the fMRI after, and then we see what happens. And then there's the control group that they before and after. What's the difference? And mindfulness meditation does tend to show that these changes are happening. So Sarah has asked here, it stops growing, but it still changes. Yes, it does keep changing. and it changes through this concept of neuroplasticity. The acronym for functional magnetic resonance imaging is like this: fMRI. For some reason, it's a lowercase f, and the name of the most commonly used class for before and after the effect of meditation on the brain is MBSR. And interestingly, in mindfulness-based stress reduction, which is an 8-week course, even only after an 8-week course, there are noticeable effects, noticeable changes in the brain. So the brain can continue changing after age 25, and this is through this idea of neuroplasticity. So neuroplasticity is the concept that what we think, what we do, what we pay attention to, all three of these have an effect on the physical structure of the brain. So what we think, what we do, what we pay attention to all have some effect on the physical structure of the brain. And so, practice. I think I wrote it in yesterday's write-up. So doing something over and over again, one thing that we could call it is practice. And you'll discover the more that you do something, the less you have to pay attention to it. So once you've practiced something, I like to use driving. I mean, maybe not everybody drives, but I remember when I first learned to drive, I really had to pay attention to everything. The pressure that my foot was exerting on the pedal, it was, just a little bit had some strong effect on the acceleration of the car. So paying attention to everything that I'm doing. I can't focus on anything else because I'm so focused on paying attention to how the car moves. Similarly, riding a bicycle. So these are examples of physical things that you can do that as you do it over time, your brain wires itself so that you don't have to cognitively think about it anymore, right? This is the concept of neuroplasticity. And it's not just limited to physical things. This happens emotionally and mentally as well. So if you're if you're constantly trying, or if you're constantly looking at everything with a negative light, right? If you're constantly thinking the worst out of situations, this is something that becomes automatic, that we start to continuously anticipate something negative happening. So even if the situation is good, because we've inclined our minds through practice to constantly see the negative, this is what's going to happen, and this becomes our new default mode of the mind. And so, what are some of the benefits? Well, how does neuroplasticity works? It's this concept that psychologists have been talking about for years, which is neurons that fire together, wire together. So if we continuously send a signal, there are lots of neurons in the brain, of course. So each thought, each physical process that we do, we experience our life through our brains, right? Everything, all of our body parts send signals to our brains, how we know that something's happening. So if that particular circuit, a thought requires several neurons to work together. So as this circuit gets used more and more, there are parts of the neurons that change. So this neuron receives information on one end, information flows out on the other end. So if we continuously use that circuit, that area where the neuron is connected to other neurons starts to develop more, and more pieces will start to flow off. So they're called dendrites. The dendrites will grow more and make it easier for that signal to pass through that area of the brain. And so this is based upon practice. And the connections that we don't use, an infant's brain has so many different connections, and the connections that we don't use for efficiency get shut down over time. So the brain is constantly changing. And as we go through this week, we'll be chatting about a few of the things that do change about the brain. So So what does autopilot? How does autopilot work? This is quite strongly linked to neuroplasticity. So the brain is changing. As the brain changes, you don't have to think about the thing that you're doing so much. It starts to happen more automatically. We'll talk about some other things as well. So instead of talking about things anymore, we will go ahead and get into our practice. All right, I see some comments here in the chat, so if you don't mind, I'll wait until the meditation's over and I'll go ahead and answer those then. So thanks, Dirk. Thanks, Key. Thanks, Janice, for your questions or for your comment. We'll chat about that a little bit after our practice. So in the meantime, speaking of neuroplasticity, the more that we do something, what we think, what we do, what we pay attention to, changes the physical structure of the brain. So let us practice paying attention. And we're going to pay attention to the body. Pay attention to how the body feels. So get yourself comfortable. You can sit in any position that you like. I would encourage you to choose a position that can help you be fully awake, so that you can be fully awake but not tense, so that you can be alert and relaxed. If you like, you can close your eyes. And start to notice what you feel in the body. So every square centimeter of your skin is sending signals to your brain right now. So can you feel your skin? Can you feel where your skin is being touched? Maybe by your clothing. Maybe by the supporting surface. Maybe your skin is exposed. You're feeling the air in contact with your skin. What sensations do you feel? Can you feel warmth or coolness? Can you feel your perspiration on certain areas of the body? So as best we can here today, remaining still, relaxed and alert, focusing on the body. And as we sit here still, focusing on the sensations that we feel in our bodies, one thing may begin to rise up out of our awareness. The fact that our bodies are gently moving as we breathe. So can you focus on those gentle movements of the body? Where do you feel the breath? So perhaps one area of the body stands out for you. You can see it's the most obvious place that you can feel where your breath is noticeable. So where is that? Is it the belly? Is it the chest? Maybe it's the nostrils. And for me today, as I observe my nostrils, I recognize that only one of them is breathing. So seeing if you are choosing the nostrils, or if you're finding the nostrils is where your breath is most apparent. Is the air moving through the nostrils equally? Maybe it's moving faster through one of the nostrils than the other. Maybe the inhalation, it's faster on the left, and the exhalation, it's faster on the right. So see if you can bring this really high resolution awareness to your experience today. See if you can drink in all of the little details about what it feels like to be breathing. And then, of course, as much as you try, as hard as you try, to keep your attention focused on your breath, you'll find that, the mind wanders. Start thinking about something else, what you're going to do next, what you've already done today. You're daydreaming, you're fantasizing. Anytime you notice the mind has left, it's not focusing on the sensations in the body any longer. It's no longer with your breath. Can you refocus your attention? Can you let go of whatever thought that has come into your mind and focus fully? There is so much to observe. There is so much information coming in through the body. Instead of daydreaming or mind wandering, is it possible for you to keep your attention fully? If nothing else, intend to keep your attention fully at the breath, at the body. Sometimes the same thought comes back. It's like that song that gets stuck in your head. Each time it comes back, not pushing it away, welcoming it because it's already here, it's already arrived. And through awareness itself, that thought can dissolve. Just being aware that it's there. As we let go, we don't push away. Just release that thought through awareness. And come back. Come back to observation of the physical sensations in the body, the consequences of breath. Okay. Congratulations for having made it through today's practice. I'll close practice with 3 rings of the bell. All right. Well done, everyone. Thank you for practicing with me. Thanks for thanks for practicing with me. Thanks for practicing with everybody here today. It's as always a pleasure to lead this practice, and to remind you, especially this week, what is the benefit? What is the purpose of doing this practice? So it's always good to remind ourselves. There's a reason that I'm meditating. I'm not just meditating because it's, I guess that's a good question. Why are you meditating? So for me, I think one of the main reason is this ability to, we talked about it last week, to separate stimulus from response. So the more that I've meditated, the more attentional control I have, the more emotional awareness that I have. And that's because of how this works, how paying attention changes the physical structure of the brain. I can see that difference and that more stability, more emotional control just through this simple act of paying attention to breathing. I think it was very bizarre to me when I first started meditating to see that result. How is paying attention to my body going to have effect on my emotional state? So something that I figured out, obviously, over the years, figured out how it works. Not how it works, figures out that at least that it does work. I have some inkling as to how it works, but this mystery still has yet to be solved. Okay, so Dirk says, what is the effect of aging on neuroplasticity, or vice versa? I think that's something that we all kind of can recognize is aging affects our flexibility, not just emotionally and mentally, but physically. So because, I don't think the effect of aging itself isn't as profound. Let's see. Because you spend so much time in your life doing the same thing, you end up, all of these extra connections out here get completely pruned. So is it harder to change when you're older? The answer is yes, but it's not because the structure of your brain is necessarily less malleable. The reason is that because you've been thinking the same thing so many times. So neuroplasticity is the reason that you're unable to change as you age, because your brain is changing no matter what. So what you think, what you do, what you pay attention to, even if you're not in control of it, your brain is constantly rewiring itself all the time. So you might notice it's just how difficult it is to change your patterns. It's because your brain has already created these subroutines to keep you doing those things because it's easy to do. So, what's the effect of aging? Overall aging, we all lose gray matter in our brains. Our brains get smaller as we age, but the evidence is, and this is from Wharton at University of Pennsylvania. So just showing that gray matter, the loss of gray matter appears to, through these studies, appears to slow down in the minds of meditators. Thanks, Dirk, for your question. Key asked, does co-regulation apply here? I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I don't know what co-regulation is. If you could write it again with a more description, that I can maybe answer it better. Janice says, I learned from my psychologist a few years ago, and it can happen, changing the path of our brain neurons. Mindfulness definitely has made a positive change for me, but is something that I work on daily. Thanks, Janice, for sharing. And Sybil says, our brain is so remarkable. It is. And as I read that, I was thinking, if you lose one of your senses, if you lose sight or hearing in particular, what happens in the brain is that the area of the brain that was responsible for sight. This is how malleable and flexible the brain is. The part of the brain that was responsible for sight, when we lose our vision, starts to convert itself over to hearing, right? So this is, the brain is such a remarkable, piece of machinery in that, it doesn't have to, the part of the brain that is assigned to this function, when this function stops working, or when a part of the brain stops working, the rest of the brain takes over. It's really fantastic. And I think, we know so little about how the brain works. I think it was like Neil Tyson deGrasse once said, if the road to understanding the brain is a mile long, we've gone like 4 inches, So there's so much more for us to learn about how our brains work. Rachel shares, my mind actually left the building. Thanks, Rachel, for sharing. Thank you, Sybil, for your donation. Sarah said, I think my mind stopped paying attention to my body because I jumped when you started talking again. So I need more practice. Well, maybe I should talk less. This is the thing. And actually, I do recommend everybody, like if you don't need the guidance, just turn the volume down. I think most everybody, let's see, where is it here? Right there. For me, I see a little timer right here. I'm not sure I think a lot of people should see this timer as well. At the 25-minute mark is about when the meditation ends. So if you feel like you don't want that additional guidance, turn your volume down until about the 25-minute mark. And then you can try meditating on your own without guidance. And Ray shares, this mystery perhaps does not need solving. Thanks, Ray. It's really, it is an interesting mystery. I'd love for it to be solved, to be honest with you. I think, maybe in the future, maybe 100 years from now, maybe sooner, we'll have started to unravel the mystery of how the brain works. But in the meantime, the mystery isn't solved. So, let's move forward with what information we have. But anyway, what's the benefit of having the mystery solved? Is if the mystery is solved, then more people can start to take advantage of these tools that affect the brain. So mindfulness is one of those tools. So, emotional regulation. I mean, this to me is such a boon, such a reward for us if we can learn to practice mindfulness and to have more control over ourselves and to not be, yanked around by the leash of our emotions, to have more control over ourselves. All right, thanks, Sue. Thanks, Sarah. Oh, good. Key has shared, co-regulation involves a reciprocal exchange of information and energy between individuals involved. For example, in a parent-child relationship, the parent may provide a calm and reassuring presence to help the child regulate their emotions during a stressful situation. In turn, the child's response to the parent's calming presence can help the parent regulate their own. Oh, yeah, that's great. So let me see. What was the... yeah, I think so. I think for sure co-regulation is a part of this process, and yeah, I mean, I think and it's it's a deep topic for us to chat about more maybe next time. But certainly, certainly it's applicable. But unfortunately, in co-regulation, there's only one side of that equation you have control over, which is your side. So, yeah, it's nice if the other if that can happen, but the only person that we really have that control over is ourselves, and I think that's what is interesting, right? And so it applies in the sense that as I become better, as I take better care of myself, as I grow as a person, that's why when people go, is mindfulness selfish? I go, maybe it appears so on this surface, but down deep it's not. Because as I improve myself, I can't help but affect the other people around me positively. And so then they reflect back, and they affect those around them positively as well. And then this is this kind of ripple effect, the interconnectivity that we have with everybody else around us. Thanks for bringing that up. All right. Let's send our well wishes to ourselves and to those around us, those who are here as well today with us meditating. May I be happy and peaceful. May everyone here today, everyone watching, listening, wherever you are, I wish you all happiness and peace. May all sentient life here across the universe, family and friends and enemies, everyone around the world, may they all be happy and peaceful. Thanks, everyone. We'll continue more about the neuroscience of mindfulness tomorrow. See you then. Bye-bye.